So thank you today for joining today. My name is David Politis. I'm the founder and CEO here at BetterCloud, and we're here for the webinar, What No One Tells You About Managing SaaS, What No One Tells You About Managing SaaS Environments, 6 Guiding Principles for IT Success. So at this point, I think everyone would agree with this, that SaaS is the system of record. For anyone who's been on webinars with me before, if we've met before, you know that this has been what I've been saying for the last 5-6 years. SaaS will become the system of record, and it is now the system of record. And it doesn't matter what kind of data we're talking about. The most mission critical data is being stored in SaaS applications, being trusted, if you will, to SaaS applications. It could be employee data, moving from PeopleSoft or SAP to Workday, namely. It could be customer data in your CRM or your ticketing system, identity, finance. It really doesn't matter. At this point, SaaS is being trusted as a system of record for all your organization's critical data. And this is a tipping point we have reached in the last couple of years, where enterprises are saying, not only do I trust these SaaS applications, I'd actually prefer to leverage these SaaS applications, because now these SaaS applications can really change how an organization runs. I mean, truly revolutionize work. Again, another big passion of mine that I've talked about a lot is reducing friction in the workplace. And these SaaS applications, as they're getting adopted, they are doing just that. If they're deployed correctly, the SaaS applications, the primary, most popular, best-in-class SaaS applications are reducing friction in the workplace, and it's actually making work, in my opinion, more enjoyable. It's taking a lot of the inefficiencies out of work, and if you look at the satisfaction of organizations, I've looked at companies that have migrated 100% from legacy technology to SaaS, and they look at their customers in terms of their end users, their employee satisfaction, and it goes through the roof, because they're starting to use applications that they use in their personal life. They're not having to change their behavior when they come into the office and take 17 extra steps to do something. So it's amazing. I mean, I am the biggest proponent of SaaS out there, and I have been for many years. Now, with that, though, for the people who are on this webinar, the people who are our customers in our community, for IT, really nobody tells you what's about to happen after you make this shift. And again, the shift needs to happen. If it does not happen, it's going to hurt recruiting. It's going to hurt productivity, innovation. I mean, the shift to SaaS has to happen, but really there's no one who says to you, hey, when you make this shift, you're going to run into a number of challenges. Number one, no one says to you, users can now expose sensitive data pretty easily. And even this is not malicious. I mean, this could just be by a mistake. This could be that the default button when sending a file is to share that file publicly, and or the button to share publicly versus share internally is a couple pixels away. It's not necessarily a user's fault per se, but it's very easy. It's very, very easy. No one tells you that the email settings, it's pretty straightforward for someone to go and forward their email to their personal Gmail account and have every email going out. And, that is not really talked about. And no one really talks about the data sprawl. No one talks about the fact that there's now data living everywhere. The same piece of data could be living in 5 places. You could have a file that's living in Google that's also attached to a Salesforce account that's also been uploaded to Slack. You can literally have data objects that are living in multiple places, replicated in multiple places. You've got users who are no longer just part of an email distribution list or some group in Active Directory. They're part of channels in Slack. They're part of email distribution lists in Office 365. They're part of Zendesk groups. They're part of this role in Salesforce. So it's just sprawl. And maybe one that I would say is the least appreciated is the fact that almost everyone that you're going to give admin access to is probably going to get super admin access. This is not the right thing to do. This is not, again, malicious by any way, stretch the imagination. This is because the SaaS applications generally don't have the granularity from an access control perspective that you would need in order to follow a least privilege model. So no one says that. I would bet right now that a large percentage of people who are on this webinar, I don't know, 90%, something like that, I would say that you probably have way too many super admins in your SaaS environment. And we've seen companies, the best practice is we've seen companies of 60, 70,000 employees that have 3 or 4 super admins. But that takes a lot of work to lock that down. And for the most part, I would say most of the companies, you've got a 500-person company that has 20 super admins. That is not good. That is way too much access for way too many people. And then no one really talks about all the repetitive tasks. When you talk about the sprawl, when you talk about a user living in so many different places, I mean, this is not this homogeneous environment that we lived in where I'm a Microsoft shop, I'm a Google shop, I'm a IBM shop. Like it's not like that. There's this homogeneous environment is done. It's heterogeneous. It's the best in class for every category. You could look at Microsoft and say, I'm a Microsoft shop, but actually I'm using Slack instead of Teams. Or I'm a Google shop, but I'm using Dropbox in addition to Drive. This is the new normal, because the ability for a company to get started and go very deep in a particular area and be the best in class, the technology that's out there and the cost to start up, it's no longer prohibitive. So with that, you've just got tasks that you have to take. You have to take actions in all these different places. And then there's a whole host of other challenges. I mean, we're going to go through this actually, but there's a whole host of challenges. And these are not things that we're just, finding on our own. This is what customers tell us. This is over many years. This is what we're hearing. These are the stories that we hear, the horror stories that we hear, the exposures that we hear. And so there's all sorts of challenges. And this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to really talk about the principles for taking control of this environment, of these environments. So with that, I'm going to take a quick second here to ask a poll. And again, for anyone who hasn't been on a webinar with me before, I like to ask these polls before I get into the meat of the presentation so that I know who I'm presenting to. So I'm going to launch this poll. You should see this now in front of you. And the question here is, how have you learned how to manage SaaS applications? So how did you do some industry certification? Did you just teach yourself? Learn from learned in school? It'd be very interesting to see what the answers here, and we'll give everyone, and I'll show you the results. We'll give everyone a couple more seconds to answer. If you're listening to me in the background, you can just come to the foreground and give me a quick answer here, and I will show you the results. Okay. So we see here, yeah, wow, almost 60% plus the 19% for just getting started. So it's most people are gonna, and the just getting started, my guess is gonna be teaching themselves. So we're talking about almost 80% teaching themselves, either have learned or just getting started. And for me, this is exactly what we've seen. This is exactly what we've seen. There are no best practices. ITIL doesn't exist for the modern environment. It doesn't exist. So best practices have to be defined. They had to be defined. And we have spent the last 5 years talking to the experts in the space, which, to the poll that we just asked, is you. So some of you are on the webinar today. These are people in our community, our customers. We have done hundreds of interviews with the experts. We are not the practitioners. You are. You're the IT professionals. We have talked to you, listened, taken notes, surveys, and we took all of this information and we put it together to write the book on SaaS application management security, which is, again, this is a new paradigm. We're just hitting that tipping point. And so we literally wrote a book. Not sure if you've seen the book. A little later, I'll have a form if you want to request a copy. But we put this book out at the end of last year, and the feedback has been amazing. And the core of the book is around this framework for managing and securing SaaS applications. And this is not BetterCloud alone. This is not like you're going to buy our product and we're going to solve every single problem you have. But this is about the broader framework that probably is going to require a couple different solutions in your environment. And the feedback has been really good. Essentially, what I've heard from people is, this is what I've been thinking, this is what I've been doing, but no one's ever put it down in writing for me. And so that's what I'm going to take you through today, are those principles. So, like I mentioned before, these are some of the challenges that we talked about. And what we're going to do is, as we build on this framework, we're going to start at the foundational level and look at really the foundational challenge. The number one challenge is really the sprawl. The sprawl across these SaaS applications, the fact that this is not a homogeneous environment, makes this extremely difficult. And for us, the first part of this framework is centralizing this sprawl. Being able to go out to all these different SaaS applications and bring the data into a single place and normalize that data and be able to look at that data in one place, that is critical. Otherwise, you can't hire enough people. Literally, you cannot hire enough people to go and manage all these SaaS applications individually. It's not possible. And so the first part here is really about centralization. Bringing the data together and normalizing it. Thinking about the fact that, look, I have files living in 5 different places. We have files in Google Drive, Box, Slack, Salesforce. Like there are files living in a lot of different repositories. But you have to bring those files together and have some concept, some normalized concept to look at files in order to make sense of that data. Look for duplicates, look for exposures, but you need to be able to bring it together first. The other part of centralization is you need to be able to, even within applications, a lot of the bigger platforms, i.e. Office 365 or specifically G Suite, they're really built essentially in silos because the product management teams are all in silos. And so even centralize on a single SaaS application is something that you need to be able to do. Bring calendars in the same areas, files the same as users, same as groups. And so centralization is the first key part. The second is, once you have done that, once you have centralized, the challenge is that there's so much data. I mean, if you look at a company of a couple hundred employees, there are probably hundreds of millions of data objects, whether that be users, groups, files, third-party apps, whatever it is. So the second part here is discoverability. It's the ability, once you've centralized everything, to sort, filter, and actually find what you're looking for and get to the narrower data set that's going to tell you something. Because looking at all your users in one place, that's somewhat useful. But you have to be able to make sense of that, because you may have 10,000 users. So being able to look at all my admins that haven't logged in this many days, that don't have two-factor on, that, for example, may be something you want to look at. You need the ability to discover. So it's about taking this massive data set and filtering this data set down. And again, there's a lot of ways you can do this. I mean, you can try to get all this data into a central database and then build some front end to it. And so you could do this stuff. It's going to take probably a long time and challenging, and we'll talk about where BetterCloud can fit in. But like I said, this is broader than just BetterCloud. I mean, the idea is like you need the ability to look across these SaaS applications. And then when you talk about that massive of a data set, and you talk about how much activity, this is important. Think about the amount of activity that happens in a SaaS application now on a day-to-day basis. People are spending all their time in front of their computer, and they're interacting with SaaS applications all the time. So the amount of activity that is being done just on a day-to-day basis is crazy. The amount of Slack messages, channels created, files shared, Chrome extensions added, email sent. Just the amount of activity on a day-to-day basis is crazy. So you need the ability to not just have some volume, based alerting where you're just getting inundated and you just have so much quantity. You need quality. You need insights. You need some way for all of this information to get boiled down and surfaced at the right time. You need the ability to say, hey, I just had a super administrator added to my Dropbox account, where you would not know that that had occurred unless you had a system in place to alert on that. You would not know. And new person could be a super admin on Dropbox for 3 months, for 6 months, for 9 months, until you went and looked at your super admin list. There needs to be a way to surface that and bring that to your attention and not overwhelm with quantity. That is how these data breaches happen. It's too much. The volume is too much. You don't end up paying attention to it because if you paid attention to everything, it would take you all day, essentially, to be able to do this. So that's the third piece of this. Now, as we move up this framework, the next is having all this information is good, but it's not. Having a dashboard is only really getting you a third of the way there, maybe half of the way there. But you need to be able to take action. You need to be able to make changes, and you need to be able to do that. Single actions, bulk actions, actions across SaaS applications, and this is important. A lot of the native tools, admin consoles, don't really give you the ability to take bulk action across a set of users or groups or files or third-party applications or devices. And the ability to take action across SaaS applications or within one in bulk is important. This goes to those repetitive tasks, and the ability to do that in mass can make a really, really big difference. It's also, to be frank, it can be complicated to go to the individual SaaS applications and try to find the actions you're looking for, because they turn out to be mostly Frankenstein. New feature comes out, bolt on another page. I think Microsoft's admin console is the best example of this. Just the left nav just keeps getting longer and longer and longer, because every time there's a new feature, just layer in a new page. And so some way to be able to do all that and do it quickly is important. And then you talk about, it's really the pinnacle. I mean, it is the pinnacle of this framework, which is automation. Really the ability to automate work and to create workflows and policies. That automation is key. That is the pinnacle. Now, this is hard. This is really utopian. To think that you can do this and do this quickly is a little bit of a utopian thought, because there's a lot of steps you need to go through to make automation work. You're going to have to define your policies in the first place, which most of our customers, even existing customers who have been with us for years, they're only now getting full approval on all their policies, and because it takes time internally. If you had no policies around file sharing or around email forwarding or about admin access it takes time to get those policies agreed upon, especially if you want to build a policy that has automated remediation, because now you're talking about really taking action and potentially making a change to the environment that could cause a challenge. And so you really need to get buy-in on the policy. You need to test the policy. You need to usually do cleanup in the environment first, take action, get everything really in a good place. You need to agree on what does that automation look like. Is it immediate? Do you wait 30 days? Do you wait 90 days? And so automation really, though, is the key. I love the top left headline here. Automation will take over IT tasks, not jobs. I believe that wholeheartedly. There is so much work to be done, so much strategic work, so much training users, so much integration work, so much that this is not about automation to kill jobs. This is about automation to really give IT the ability to respond quickly. If there's a breach, if you don't have automation in place, you don't have a policy in place, it could take, like I said before, days, weeks, months to respond to that. And so that's really the pinnacle is automation. And again, this is going to take time. This doesn't happen overnight. For people who read the book, a lot of the feedback I get is how much can actually be automated. And people ask, like, should I go try to automate everything in my environment? And the answer is definitely not everything's going to be, you won't be able to automate everything. But just starting with some of the repetitive tasks that always look exactly the same. One of the most popular ones is onboarding and offboarding. That whole area, that's essentially the same tasks over and over that usually take pretty long time to do, very error prone, and that is something that should just be automated. There are other things. If you're deploying a new SaaS platform, you probably don't want to start putting automated remediation in place before you really know how that SaaS platform is going to be adopted. Now, you want to be monitoring it. You want to be, building insights off of it. But you don't necessarily want to take automated remediation action on some new SaaS platform that's just getting rolled out to the org. So it takes work, it takes strategy. And lastly is the wrapper that goes around this entire framework. And that wrapper is this ability to not just do all the work that's in the framework, but delegate that work to others in your organization. Because it's important that, this work is obviously not going to be done by you, the IT director or the IT manager or the VP of IT, whatever your role is. It's not going to be done most of the time by you at scale. Maybe if you're a 100-person, 200-person company, you are probably the one doing the work. If you're a 10,000-person company, you've got a help desk team doing it. But what's key is delegating out the least amount of access that you need to delegate, because the super admin credentials on these SaaS applications, it's root access. It's essentially root access. And when you're giving that kind of access, things can happen. The example I was talking about before, there was an organization that had dozens of super admins on a 500-person company, and the super admins were not really trained on the Google Admin Console. And one of them made a change and made all files created going forward shared publicly. All files. Not making this up. Serious problem. And that was because a super admin who wasn't trained made a change that they should not have had access to. And that caused some major problems. And for what we see is that can be solved through granular access rights, as well as auditability. You need the ability to audit what this group of people is doing and have accountability. And again, auditability, not just for a single SaaS app, but across SaaS apps, because just the activity in one SaaS app is not, it may not be indicative of what is happening across the SaaS applications. And it may not be indicative of a behavior issue or whatever it may be. And so you need to be able to delegate and audit that work. So I'm going to quickly go through this. This is, if you think about how this all comes together, I'll give you an example here around external users. So again, in this new environment, this new paradigm, external users, meaning contractors, maybe customers, partners, they are being added into your environment in different ways. They may be added on an email distribution list. They may be added in a shared folder in your Dropbox. They may be added as a guest on Slack. They may be who knows? They could be added in a whole host of places. And those external users, of course, there's good reason for that. Actually, again, back to where the value of the SaaS applications are, the fact that you can share a file and collaborate on a file with a customer is kind of amazing. But you need to know where those users are. Again, I'm going to say there's a high likelihood that in your environments, maybe not 90%, but there's a high likelihood that you have external users in your environment somewhere that you are not aware of. Most likely, it's going to be email distribution lists or files, but there's a whole host of places where they could be living. And so the first step is centralizing all this data. Who are the external users on the Slack accounts? Who is the external users on the Google account? Who's the external users on the Office 365 account, on the Dropbox account, so on and so forth. And then once you do that, understanding not only who they are, but what access do they have? I mean, if they're on a file that is specific to them, maybe it's a project plan that has been shared with a customer and it's specific to that customer, maybe there's no problem. But if it's a contractor who's helping the executive team and they're on a Slack channel with all the execs, and they were left there because there's no good way to audit that, then that could be a big problem for you. And the next step is insights, is really, another example, by the way, on all this is calendars. Someone could be on a calendar, a whole host of places they could be. Anyway, the next step is insights, which is you want to actually be told when this is happening. Maybe this user has been in this channel for 90 days or whatever it may be, this external user, this contractor. But then there's the action. You don't want to just look at that. You want to be able to go and quickly remediate that. Oh my God, this person is in here for a year too long. They stopped working with us a while ago. Now they're actually a consultant for one of our competitors. How do I go kill that access? And then ultimately, if you can build a policy around this and you can get automation done, like I said, that's the pinnacle. Now that may take a while because you don't want to kill some contractor's access who needs that access. But there's some interesting ways you could do that. You could time base it to say when a contractor is added to our environment, they get 90 days by default, and after 90 days, the manager or the person who requested it gets alerted, and and then they get another 10 days, and then it deletes that account. There's a whole host of ways you could deal with it, but automation is key in this. You want to get there, because if you can get there, again, you can sleep easier. I mean, I believe that. Like you don't have to think, oh God, where is that user? And where I know we added someone 6 months ago to these email distribution lists. Where do they live there? Which files are they on? And then ultimately, you're going to want to delegate that, because essentially you're going to want, at scale, especially if you're at scale, you're going to want to delegate that work. It's going to be in someone's workload, someone's work that they have to do is to monitor and to remediate this or to remove people's access. And so you want to be able to delegate that, but you may only want to be able to delegate user based activity versus you don't want to give that help desk person access to files also, or to licenses or whatever it may be. So with that, I'm going to take another quick break here. It's a lot of talking. And I'm going to put up this next poll. So again, if you could come up to the foreground here. So how closely, so this is a framework, we've developed, but again, it's a framework that we really worked with our community to build. So my question is, when you see this framework, are you following this today? And if you are, how closely are you following this? Is this just what you do in your org? Close, yesterday we did a similar webinar, and there was a large portion that said they haven't started because they haven't even fully deployed their SaaS platform. So I'm just trying to get a sense here of, again, I'll wait for a couple more people here to vote, and then I'll share the results. But I'd just be interested to hear, if this is the kind of thing you're doing in your organization. Okay, let me close this and share the results. So, okay, interesting. So it sounds like for a lot of you, and maybe this matches up with the question I asked before, is there's a large portion here that potentially hasn't even started the deployment of their SaaS applications, or maybe they themselves are new in a role. This would be interesting. I wish I could ask a follow-on question, but anyway, this would be interesting to dig into. Okay, thank you. So like I mentioned before, if you have any interest, just to bring this back to BetterCloud, we can help implement this in your organization. Now, we're not going to do everything. It's not going to be a magic bullet where you install BetterCloud and the next day just everything is taken care of. It's going to require work. You need to build these policies out internally. We can help you put them into BetterCloud, but you need to have those internally. We can help you decide what those should look like. But if you've never seen the product, I strongly suggest you take a look. It's we launched this new platform at the end of 2016, and it's just been amazing what this platform can do. Honestly, we spent almost 2 years, $20 million building this platform, and launched at the end of 2016, and 2017 was a big year for us in terms of functionality. I'm very proud of what we've put in the product, and we designed the product off this framework. We literally, our product is designed based on the framework that we heard people were using. We tried to match that. we didn't just go out and say, we're going to be, try to fit into some magic quadrant from Gartner, from this analyst. We talked to customers. We said, what are you doing? What's the right way to manage these environments? What have you had success with? And we're going to try to match that in our product. So anyway, if you're interested, you can fill out the form there. You can also email me directly if you're interested, dave@bettercloud.com. And then from the book perspective, if you're interested, you can request a book. We'll send you a hard copy, controlyoursas.com/fromdavid. Just go ahead and fill out the form, and we'll send you a copy, the hard copy of the book. If you want a couple copies, let us know. And we are going to be doing a second edition, probably mid-2018. And one piece of feedback, maybe the only negative feedback on the book, is we want more IT practitioners, tactical guides, if you will, to how to deploy, how to actually manage this framework, how to deploy this framework in your organization. And so one of the things we're working on for 2018 is the second edition, which will have essentially inserts from IT practitioners like yourself, talking about how you've deployed and how you've stood up this framework in your organization. So if you're one of the people that answered that you're following this closely or 100%, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to participate if you're open to it, dave@bettercloud.com, and we would love to interview you and actually give you credit in the book, have you write one of these chapters, if you will. So we're very excited for that. And with that, my email is here again, dave@bettercloud.com. You have any questions, comments, feedback on this webinar, please let me know. We're always looking to improve. I really appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate you coming and listening and taking the polls, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much. We've got a really good webinar coming up in February around, more specifically, some very specific policies, the top 8 policies that we see people implementing in their organization. So we're going to be doing that in February. I'll go through those policies. And it's going to be much more tactical than this. This is obviously high level and strategic around the principles, but that's going to be a very tactical. These are the policies you need in place. These are the top policies that people put in place, and this is how to do that very specifically. So with that, thank you very much for your time. And let me just, so one just quick question I see here. The question was, does BetterCloud work with Slack and Dropbox? The answer is absolutely yes. BetterCloud works with Google, Office 365, Slack, Dropbox, Box, Zendesk, Salesforce, namely Atlassian, and soon to be a couple more in the first quarter that are going to be pretty cool. So yeah, thank you again. Thank you for your time. I'll give you about 30 minutes here back, and have a wonderful day.